Can you close out the room or?
Oh, let me close the waiting room.
All right. Hey, welcome everybody. Good morning. Happy Wednesday. Really stoked to have you all here. We're gonna let the room get populated here, let folks join us. Hope you're all well.
And
So great to
I was gonna say while we're waiting for everybody to get settled, if folks can add your name, your organization, and your role, and where in Oregon you're based into the chat. We'd love to see who's here.
Hey Maggie. We're really excited to have you all hanging out with us, following up from our awesome convening in November where we got to see so many folks in person. And yeah, if you're just rolling in, we're putting our name and organization and your role there and where you're located in the chat. And yeah, we'll be getting going here in a bit.
And Andrew, we should probably introduce ourselves for any folks who are new to OCFSN.
Yeah.
Why don't you go ahead?
Okay. Hey, I'm Andrew. I work for the Oregon Community Food Systems Network as an associate director. I help manage the Farming for the Future and policy working groups. And yeah, I work really closely with Shin.
Hi, everyone. My name is Shin. I use she, they pronouns. I'm the executive director at Oregon Community Food System Network. And you'll see me a little bit more working closely with food hubs and the VeggieRx and HRSN Learning Collaborative. And we're really excited to have you here. We've also got a good handful of our OCFSN leadership team members. Will y'all raise your hands? We got Lauren and Allison, Delaney and Rihanna. And
Penny,
thank you, thank you. And we've also got some board members on there. I see Sarah and Catalina. Awesome. It's great to see a bunch of familiar faces, some new names, and some new friends from the November convening.
we have a pretty stacked agenda today, so we're going to just get rolling and things started and let folks get acclimated as they join. So we did our intros. There's going to be a lot of info today in the slides. We'll be sharing the recording and the slides after the fact. So yeah, no worries there. You'll have those resources afterwards. If you do have questions as we're presenting, please put those in the chat. We'll be monitoring the chat and we will answer those to the best of our ability. And then you can always follow up with Shin and I afterwards if you have questions that weren't answered. Please stay on mute as we're presenting today. And yeah, you're gonna hear, so we're gonna do these intros. We're gonna have our amazing and wonderful uh, strategic planning consultants, Tara Soma, lead us through a really fun exercise and activity developing OCFSN's mission, vision, and value statements. They've got a whole engaging activity for y'all to be a part of, and then we're going to jump to we're going to do that for 30 minutes. They're going to step away. They're going to take all the stuff that y'all put together and refine it into some draft statements that we'll get to look at the end. But while they're doing that, we've heard from a lot of folks over, especially at the convening and since. We have a lot of new folks in the network, a lot of folks who are interested in kind of the nitty gritty of how OCFSN works. So we're going to spend a good 20 minutes or so going over the details on what is OCFSN, how do we work, what's the history, all that stuff. So we're going to give you that information so folks can feel up to date of what it means to be a member, what your roles and responsibilities are, how our leadership works, all that stuff. And then we'll talk a little bit about what we've done in the last year and things that y'all have contributed to, and the amplifying work, the network for food systems organizations across the state. We'll take a quick break, and then we'll hear from briefly from folks who coordinate the 5 working groups, places where you really get in the details of specific issues and opportunities in the food systems. Then, like I said, Terrasoma is going to come back and we're going to review what they put together for us. So without further ado, if you're just joining us, name and organization and role and location in the chat, and then we'll pass it over to the Terrasoma folks. We're really excited to have them lead us through this exercise.
Thanks, everyone. Claudia, I'll introduce myself and pull up the slide deck, but Claudia is going to kick off our session in the driver's seat. I'm Maggie Adamek, one of 2 strategic planning facilitators who's supporting OCFSN's planning process. We've got a little slide deck to share with you in a minute. Claudia, I'll turn it over to you. Before we do that, Mallory Jones, who's also on Terrasoma's team, is joining us for this first half hour, and then working with Claudia and I behind the scenes during that 30-minute segment in the middle, so we can come back fully equipped and prepped to do the second part of the session today. I am joining you from Minneapolis. As you know, our community right now is undergoing a lot. We took a lot of inspiration from Portland when the city of Portland was facing its own kind of challenges. So it's cold and it's hard here, so it really warms my heart to be working with all of you today. So Claudia, what I am going to do is put this in slideshow mode and turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Maggie. Good morning. Buenos dias, everyone. My name is Claudia Morales, logging in from LA. I'm happy to see some familiar faces after having joined you all for the convening in November, for those of you that were there. And as Maggie mentioned, we're part of the Terrasoma team, partnering with OCFSN to renew their strategic plan for the next few years. And so our hope today is to be really focused around exploring, revisiting, rewriting, updating the mission vision statement for the organization. And the reason why we wanted to make sure that bigger stakeholder group of the network is involved is because ideally we want it to be reflective of what you're experiencing, what you're understanding to be the needs in your community, and what better way than to ask you directly and to have you be involved in this process. And so, as Shin and Andrew have mentioned, some of you might be newer to the organization, and this might be the initial steps to engaging. Some of you might have more history with the organization, so we invite you to bring all of that along with your best thinking in terms of how we want to shape this moving forward. And so what we're going to do today, we're going to go over some specific concepts around what are mission, vision, values, and exploring the different styles and approaches that people take to developing those statements for different organizations. We're also going to talk a little bit about a preferred statement. So thinking about any audience is going to come across and receive this information about the organization, what's going to be the most effective way to communicate what OCFSN is about. We'll have an exercise where we're going to ask you again to either pull out your thesaurus or recall all your SAT words, or to really think about specifically what comes to mind for you when you think about the work that OCFSN does, who it does it in partnership with, and to what end. And so we'll have a brainstorm exercise for that. We're going to take a short break during which you'll be discussing other topics on the agenda. And then when we come back, we're going to share with you some of the drafts that we've created as a result of your input. And so the idea is really to have a more solid statements developed for all of those 3, the mission, vision, and values. All right. So in terms of what will happen after today, once we've gone through these exercises, we're going to go ahead as a Terrasoma team and review all your input, make sure that we're capturing it accurately and that's being integrated into the drafts that are going to be developed. And then we're going to continue to work with the with the team, in this case, Shin and Andrew, including the leadership team and board members, to then continue to refine those statements so that we can get to, they'll be incorporated to the strategic plan that gets developed later this year. So part one, before we go into our break, we're going to want to make sure that we all have a shared understanding of what we mean when we talk about a mission, vision, and value statement. And then we're going to go into doing the word storm. So first off, let's talk about some definitions. So what do we mean when we talk about what is a mission statement? So a mission statement is really about what we do. So as OCFSN, it's really having clarity and understanding about what it is that the organization exists to do. When we think about the vision, it's about what we want. This tends to be more future oriented, to think about as a result of the work that OCFSN does. What do you see your community looking like, being like, sounding like? And then lastly, we want to talk about values, and those are the things that matter to you. These are the ways that you are agreeing to engage with each other, either within the organization or in extension when working with the greater community. How our process is going to work today. So part of one, what we're going to do is we already explored some of the definitions to make sure we all have a shared understanding. We're also going to share with you some different examples and styles of how people have developed their mission, vision, value, and statements, just to give you a few options in terms of which direction resonates closely or better with the network, with all the members. And then lastly, we're going to go into the brainstorming session where you'll have an opportunity to share with us specific words that you feel accurately describe who OCFSN and what it is about.
Thanks, Claudia. And I'll just hop in here and say the structured process that we've used that with the National Campaign for Sustainable Agriculture. It's called something else now, but we've done it for them. Moses, which is an Upper Midwest organic farmer comprehensive support organization, numerous food policy councils across the country, including a number on the West Coast and in the Pacific Northwest. So when we work with our clients or our partners in doing strategic planning, we've used this approach to great effect many, many times within the context of food systems-based organizations and other types of organizations that we work with. Okay, thanks, Claudia.
Part two, thank you, Maggie. Part two, when we come back, we'll be able to share with you a couple of different drafts that we have created during the break, incorporating all the input that you've provided. And then we also want to share a little bit about where we're at in terms of the general strategic planning process and what's going to be coming up. So for those of you that might have attended the convening or received the notes and got a chance to look over those, we did have a couple of activities during that convening that were specifically for the strategic planning process. One of them was a general session where everybody was able to attend and receive an update in terms of, at that point, what had we learned so far. There was a survey that was shared out earlier in the year where we asked for your input in terms of what was important for you as a member of the organization or a partner or a collaborator. We also held a few focus groups, particularly with the leadership team and the board. And then we also conducted a couple of individual interviews so that we can really understand the history of the organization, what happened up until this point to bring it here, and then taking stock really about what the organization had been able to accomplish and what those folks that are intimately involved in the work understood some of the needs to be. And so a combination of all of those things, we brought it to the convening. We also were able to have a breakout session that particularly focused on the mission, vision, values. And so that was really an opportunity to discuss more in depth in terms of people's understanding of when we think about the mission, what are you trying to accomplish? Who are you working in partnership or working to serve? And then the vision and the values. And so we've already generated some really important, valuable content from you all. And so this is just part two of revisiting that, extending the reach for us. It's important to hear from as many members of the network and the organization. And so today is really just to do a little bit of a deeper dive around that.
And what we'll do as a result of our session today is, as we're crafting those statements in the middle of our meeting today, that work that folks did at the breakout session in November will be incorporated with the feedback that you provide today. So we're really casting, pulling in the net of all of the pearls that you've already contributed in addition to the work that you do today to generate this first round of statements for you to workshop. Okay.
All right. So our next part is really to focus around the style so that you have again, a few options in terms of how different organizations approach this work.
Thank you. Thanks, Claudia. So just full disclosure here, when I went to college, I majored in literature. So writing is important to me personally. And I also know in writing things, important statements for organizations like mission, vision, and value statement, express things that are important to you organizationally, but also express your voice, soul, and heart. And so one of the things we want to kick off with is to give you practice at using the online tool we're going to use today for our work, our brainstorming work. So we'll kick things off first by having a conversation about style. You'll see here two versions of mission statements. I picked one from Oregon, and I'm sure some of you are very familiar with this mission statement. But you can see here two examples of organizations that are food systems focused that have developed mission statements. And one version is what I call the short and sweet version. And I was telling Claudia yesterday, Target headquarters are in the city of Minneapolis where I live. They have the shortest mission statement I've ever seen, which is best company ever. So it can be even shorter than the High Desert Food and Farm Alliance. But this gives you an idea. The Alliance selected a style for their mission statement that I would characterize as more concise. In Berkeley, big university town, they love multi-syllabic words, lots of precision. So their style is something that I would characterize as more descriptive, longer, including more ideas and concepts. Now, each of these entities made their decision about style and length for their own reasons. There's no right or wrong. And what we're trying to understand for all of you at OCFSN as we're drafting statements is if you like something shorter and punchier, or you like something more descriptive and explanatory. So you'll see these statements again as I walk you through the structured process, but take a peek at the distinction between the two and just keep those things in mind as you think about OCFSN and how you might like to craft OCFSN's voice as we articulate these statements. Here's the same thing with vision statements. You can see good old Johnson County, Iowa. I had to include an example from the upper Midwest. You can see here they use a few different adjectives that describe their vision for their local food system. And it's shorter and sweeter. On the other hand, the city of Sacramento's Food Policy Council is much longer and more comprehensive, and it's actually 3 vision statements in one. The first one is about the council itself. The second one is their vision around the local ecology and its interface with agriculture. And the third one is really about their engagement with the community. So this gives you an idea of not just longer versus shorter, but also what you want your vision statement or your mission statement to accomplish for you as an organization. So here's an example of short and sweet and longer, more comprehensive with a vision statement. Now, here's the same deal with value statements. The state of Florida's Food Policy Council includes 4 key values, followed by some descriptors about what those values mean to them. And you can see they've coupled equity and justice. So you've got a twofer with a couple of Florida Food Policy Council values. And then you can see Rhode Island Food Policy Council really is written kind of a small novella and so again here it depends on how much you want to say. One of the things I often encourage an organization to do when it is creating a mission statement is have something that people who are members can commit to memory. So keep that in mind. You're less often having to rattle off all of the organizational values and more often having to rattle off the mission statement. But here's an example again of a shorter value statement and a longer, more comprehensive value statement. As it happens, both of these entities have a statewide reach. But what I tried to do is, and in this case, they happen to be a lot from alliances and councils, but think less about the who and the reach and more about what you want to say and the voice you want to use for OCFSN. So here are a few examples, and now I'm going to stop sharing the screen to do a little brainstorm and get your votes in on the style you prefer for your mission, vision, and value statements. So I'm going to stop sharing and give me just a minute to move over to our practice session with the application, the platform we're going to use. It's really easy to use. Many of you likely have already used this type of polling platform before, or Menti specifically. And so what I'm going to ask you to do is at the top of the screen, you'll see the instructions about what you need to do. So you can use any device you have. You can use your laptop. You can use your cell phone, you can use a tablet, and you want to go to your browser and type in www.menti.com, just like it shows at the top of this slide. It will ask you for a code, and if you punch in that code, you're going to get the first slide to come up here, which is take your pick about which style of mission statement you prefer, short and sweet or long and comprehensive. So I'm going to invite you all to cast your votes.
I'm not seeing the website that you told us to go to.
So at the top, in your device, go to your browser. And if you look at the top of this slide, you type in menti.com. And Menti is spelled MENTI.com. When that comes up, it will ask you for a code. That code is at the top of your screen, but I would be happy to type in both in the chat if that's easier for you.
I'm dropping this in the chat now.
Thanks, Shan. So, Anne, we can keep that advice about precision in mind, and I would say that, and positivity. So, a positive tone is really helpful. That's feedback that we'll definitely take into account as we draft these for you. And I would characterize precise, that could go either way, right? So, you pick the perfect word that can cover a lot of meanings. In that regard, it can be precise or the longer and more descriptive one. So we ask you to vote using this model, but if you have additional comments like the one you shared, by all means, put them in the chat. Thank you for that. Okay, it looks like we've got a few more folks to vote, 37 out of 39. Anybody having trouble getting into Menti? Okay. Great. Well, I think you can see here sort of what all of you have said, and there is a strong preponderance of folks that are more interested in a shorter, crisper version of the mission statement. Okay, we're going to do the exact same thing with the vision statement. So the two examples I provided for you in the slide deck are here on the left. And we'd like to ask you, would you like a shorter and sweeter version of the vision statement or something longer and more comprehensive? As you're casting your vote, one reason we like this structured approach is that we really have the opportunity to hear from everybody. So this is a good way to get your individual preferences in the mix and also to have the opportunity about what the kind of whole feels like and kind of respectively what your colleagues are also thinking. Okay, we need a few more votes here. If some of you are just joining now, all you have to do is express your preference for a shorter and sweeter vision statement or a longer and more comprehensive vision statement. Okay. Thanks, everyone. Some of you will continue to vote and we'll move on, but if you haven't cast your vote yet, feel free to do so. Next one. Now we're going to ask you the same question about value statements. And by now, once you voted for this, oops, no, we're not going to ask you about value statement. Okay. We're good. Thanks, everybody. This gives you a chance to practice at things. And now we're going to move into questions for you that are specific to the mission statement. So remember, as Claudia shared with you, a mission statement, it really describes what you do as an organization, not who you are, not what you're trying to achieve in terms of outcomes or hopes, not what you value, but really as an organization, what you do. And I have a few questions on the word storm associated with you contributing nouns and verbs that will help us craft a mission statement that accurately reflects what OCFSN does. So let's move to the next slide. And what I'm going to ask you to do first is write verbs that describe what OCFSN works on. And I've given you some examples like decide, advance, inspire, collaborate. So think about what OCFSN is going to be doing in the next 5 years and share some verbs that you think best capture what OCFSN does. And no problem, Christy. Thanks for letting us know. Now you know how it works. And Christy, I did get your note about simplicity for public-facing language, so thank you for that. And you'll start to see as folks are contributing these words that some are using the same words. You can see cluster of words that are similar, like connect and collaborate, foster collaboration, those kinds of things. Claudia and I will take and start to cluster. A reminder for those of you who are newer to word clouds is the larger words mean more than one person has mentioned it. So the larger the word, the more people have mentioned that word. Great, thanks everybody. What a good array of words. This is great, super. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next slide. If you are still populating your Menti slide here with additional words, go for it. We want to give us all you got. And let's move on to the next question about the mission statement. Now, what I want you to do is write nouns that describe the focus of OCFM's work, right? So I provided some examples like the food system, hunger, health, farmers, land, tribes, local food. So think about the nouns that describe the focus of what OCFSN does. Have at it. And one thing you'll see here as you're populating with words, not surprisingly, how much food-related words show up. Sustainable food, local food economy, food systems, local food system, food systems. So you can see even among the array of words, not surprisingly, how prominently various terms associated with food show up in your word cloud. Great. Thanks, everyone. If you're still working on it, go for it, and I'll continue to move on. So next up, we're going to start. Next up, we're going to start our work on the vision statement. So now a reminder before you start populating your words, the vision statement is about what you want, what you are trying to achieve, that ideal future state that Claudia described. So now we're going to ask for verbs that describe OCFSM's ideal food system. So I've provided some example of verbs. This is the verb board. So grow, feed, nourish, celebrate, sustain. So the verbs I'm looking for are verbs tied to the ideal food system. We're going to generate other words about other aspects of OCFSN in a minute, but this is about what kind of food system you want ideally for Oregon. Remember, I'm asking for verbs. Verbs are action words. And I think you can see as you're watching what you contribute and your colleagues contribute, where there's overlap, where there are distinctions, where there are nuances, where there are similar concepts but different use of words. So it really gives Cloudy and I a working vocabulary. I like to call this data that we'll be able to use to craft draft statements for your review and workshopping. Okay. Thanks to all of you who've contributed. If you're still working on it, go for it. And we will move on to the next slide. Okay, now we're asking for nouns, not verbs. And remember, nouns are things. And what we want here is that describe the components of the food system. So before you start adding words, I want you to look at the instructions at the top. What we're looking for here are nouns that describe the components of the food system that OCFSN is addressing. That could be market channels, that could be healthy food access, that could be production skills development for growers, it could be focus on farmers. So make sure that you're using nouns and make sure that you're describing the components of the food system that OCFSN will be working on. Wow, great stuff, folks. Keep it rolling. One thing that's very helpful for Claudia and me is you're not only providing us with language to use, but a kind of a clarity of instruction about what matters to you across all three of these statements. So it's your voice and imprint that will be in each of the draft statements that we create for you. Thank you. Okay. Good. Well, feel free to keep adding if you have more to add, and we will move on to the next poll. Now, remember to read the instructions first. This is still vision statement, but we're asking for adjectives. And remember, adjectives are words that help describe a noun or a thing. Here we want adjectives that describe the food system that you want. It could be vibrant, like the one you see on the screen. It could be healthy. It could be green. It could be fair. It could be affordable. Great. So you're coming up with some great adjectives. Keep writing it. And remember, adjectives are words that describe nouns or things. And I'll be interested as you're kind of reviewing what your colleagues are sharing here. Where are there differences of opinion or distinctions in the way that you see things and understand things, and what your fellow network stakeholders are saying? So where's your voice, and how does it fit in with the voice of all the other folks joining us today? Great. Okay, feel free to continue to add here. A lot of good content here. Now let's move on to values. So before you start typing, remember that values are what matters to you. And I have 3 questions for you associated with values. So first, I would like you to tell us what values should inform the design of Oregon's food system. And I've just given you 3 examples. A value of resilience, a value of nutritiousness, a value of justice. So some of these words you may have used in the previous things. That's no problem. We want to know what you think here. But the values we're asking you to list here are about the design of Oregon's food system, the values that should inform the design of Oregon's food system. Great. And you can see these aren't word clouds here, but if you scroll down, like I'm scrolling down as folks add their words. So you can see here that there's a lot of overlap in what people are saying about the values that matter related to the design of Oregon's food system. Great. You guys are just keeping going. This is terrific. Thank you. Super. Okay. As you continue to add to this, I'm going to move in just a minute to the next question, which is also a question about the values statement. A lot of good words here. I'm going to ask you to do the same thing, but focus on something else. What values should guide the way you all work together as a network? So this is not about the food system. This is about the way you work together as a network. So I've provided some examples like respect, transparency, inclusiveness. So here we're looking for values that are about how you work together as a network. So go for it. In love. That's a good one. I tell you, being in Minneapolis this week, it's our community's love for each other that's helping us get through this really difficult chapter. So I appreciate the reminder of how important that is. These are really nice. Very good. Thank you, everybody. I'm going to ask one question here. For the person who wrote co-sensing, can you explain to Claudia and I what you mean? We want to make sure we accurately capture that when we're doing our statements generation work in a couple of minutes.
Call me out, Maggie.
Thanks,
Uh,
Allison.
it's this, when we have diverse voices at a table, there's this moment of awkwardness and this like, we're here, we know we're all on the same page. There's like a co-emergence, a co-sensing. It's listening for what wants to come in the space between that's informed by all the players at the table.
Super. Thank you for that clarification. Awesome. Wow. Thank you, everybody. Let's move on to the next question about values. In this case, we've already had a chance to talk about values about the food system. We've had a chance to talk values about how the network should work. Now we want values about that should guide the way that OCFSN works with the community. That community could be various stakeholder groups that are a part of OCFSN. That community could be the geographic community that you're in, and OCFSN is playing an instrumental or helpful role. So be expansive when you think of this term community. What values should guide the way we work with community? Great. And you'll see some of these values are the same as what you mentioned in the previous slide. So, these values reflect how you should work together as a network as well as how you work with folks in the community. Let's generate a few more here. Great. While we're waiting for folks to add their final language, one thing I do want you all to know is the nice thing about using Menti as a tool is we can download this so that all of you, if you're curious, can have access to the entirety of the input. Claudia and I are going to use it as essentially a data set to draft these statements. But this raw information is certainly something that is easy to download and make accessible to anybody who's interested in seeing it. So you can see the before and the after, what you generated and then what Claudia and I did with it to create the statements. Super. Thanks, everyone. Okay, I think this is the last slide. Yes, it is. Okay, so back to the slide deck. Okay, and then hang on, just screen sharing for the boomer here. Here we go. So we're going to take a 30-minute break now, Claudia and Mallory and me, while you all do other good work, and Andrew's describe what that's going to do. So after 30 minutes of us going offline and working together, we're going to come back to work with you to review and give feedback on hot off the press versions of mission, vision, and values statements based on the work you just did and the feedback from the November 2025 convening. So it incorporates things we've already heard from all of you. And then we're going to workshop all of that together as a structured process after that 30-minute break. So thank you so much. We'll see you in a little bit. And Shin, just confirming that we can just click on the Zoom link and rejoin when the time comes, because we're going to, okay, good. We'll see you all in a little bit. Thanks for your great input, everybody.
Can people hang out and visit?
You all are staying with your meeting. Claudia and I are going to go
Yeah,
do
we've
work.
got lots more for you. There's
Oh, dang it.
sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
You don't want to hang out with us, Sarah?
So we're going to give them the time to thank you, everybody. Thanks for being engaged in that and contributing. There was a lot of really good input. So now, as I stated at the top here, we're going to give you a little bit of overview of OCFSN. So there's some questions. We heard at the convening, lots of new folks in the network. What is OCFSN? How does our network work? And so we wanted to make sure we gave you all some background so we were all better informed to work together through this structure that we've created over the years. So we're going to give you a bit of a history of OCFSN. We're going to talk about what we do. We're going to share our governance and the bylaws briefly to talk about what we use as staff and leadership and board to guide the work of the network and what outlines responsibilities of members and these things. We'll talk about how we're structured with our membership and leadership entities and then the working groups. We'll share a brief little bit about over the last 3 years since we've been a nonprofit, how OCFSN has been funded. And then we'll share how to be engaged with the network, what you do, how you get yourself connected to this collective work. So let's jump through it. We're a little over time, so I'm going to be talking pretty quickly. We're going to share these slides, and we're going to have this recording available so folks can go back if you missed something. So 2012 to 2017, before Shin and Mai's time, many of you, were engaged in creating the network. This started as a series of convenings funded by Meyer Memorial Trust. And during this time period, 34 founding members affirmed the proposal to establish the priority areas for VeggieRx, Snap Match, wholesale market development, and access to land, which has changed over time. And then we started getting more refined. Working groups started to get developed. There's some money came in for double up food bucks during this time, both earlier 2012 and 2017, and then in the 2018, 2019 period. So the network is getting refined and getting some access to resources and funding for some of the specific priorities. And then in 2020, more funding secured for program expansion with Double Up Food Bucks and the Beginning Farmer and Rancher Working Group secured some funding. And then in the big start to the refinement of OCFSN 2021, more funding, new working group combining Beginning Farmer and Rancher and access to land, food hub working groups developed, and then we applied for and got our 501c3 status in 2020, applied in 2021, and got it in 2022, and hired the first 2 staff. We're still here, Shin and I, and that's our roles have developed and changed over these years. And we got our first 1.5 million Yeah, good. Thank you for clarification on that, Lauren, on when the working group Food Hub was created in 2018 and then refined in 2021. We got our first state funding for 1.5 million in disaster relief funding. It says resilience here is actually disaster relief funding in 2022, and then 2023 to 2025. We held our first in-person convening in November of 2025, back after the pandemic. All came together in person across the network. Secured 2.65 million for farmer and rancher disaster resilience funding, 1.5 for Food Hub worker safety and infrastructure. Developed the HRSN Learning Collaborative through VeggieRx. Incorporated a new working group and brought in the Oregon Farm to Institution Collaborative. These are just some of the top level things. There's a lot more that's happened over those years, but that's kind of the trajectory. Health related social needs. Thanks, Sarah, for HRSN. What do? We're dedicated to strengthening local and regional food systems to deliver better economic and social health and environmental outcomes across the state. This is kind of our current mission and vision. And we do this through convening folks. We host working groups on these specific areas. We'll go into detail on what our current working groups are, and we support collaborative projects that come out of the working groups. All right, we'll go into a little bit of governance. So earlier on, we've had some, OCFSN has had some informal bylaws, informal guides of how we work together. But in 2022, when we were officially recognized as a 501c3, we have official bylaws that detail OCFSN's organizational structure, how leadership team and board are elected, how new members are brought on, the responsibilities of members, the role, your responsibility to reaffirm your engagement and membership in OCFSN annually. And yeah, we wanted to highlight that and give you an opportunity to look. We had our first bylaws amendment this year, changing a little bit of how the board is made up. And that's been detailed in recent newsletters. So yeah, this is how us as staff and how the leadership team, we could go back to this document a lot to make sure that we're following the intent behind the bylaws, which is to give OCFSN members as much influence and responsibilities over how OCFSN is managed as possible. And we have Penny here, who's on the leadership team, who also serves on the bylaws committee, and just wanted to give her a chance to share what she's learned and what the value is of being engaged in the governance of OCFSN as she's learned and supported the network.
Thanks, Andrew. So I joined the leadership team in 2025 and made sure to join the bylaws committee just because going through the document sort of helped me to better understand how OCFSN is meant to function and what the role of the leadership team was. Having worked with that committee and gone through the bylaws, it's been a really excellent way of understanding how the organization has changed over time, and how these guiding bylaws poise it to effectively step into its new role.
Thanks, Penny. Yeah, it's definitely these bylaws were created, and OCFSN has grown and developed significantly since they were developed. So we are leaning through the strategic planning process and then some future review of bylaws to further refine how to best manage this organization with memberships at heart. Good question, Anne. Selk is awesome. We'd love to look at that. Tempo has been sporadic currently, and I think our goal is to be more active in refining and developing the bylaws to be as reflective of how we'd like to work together. So I'll definitely look at that resource. Thank you. OCFSN is unique. Most nonprofits have a board of directors. OCFSN has a leadership team and a board of directors. which has its benefits. It gives membership who elects leadership team more say, but also creates complications. This is a document, a graphic we put together a year or so ago that kind of shows the complexity of how OCFSN is managed. We have the leadership team voted in by the membership. Leadership team then votes for our board, and then who are the legal responsible entity for managing OCFSN by the rules of 501c3s. We have all sorts of committees, co-chairs, executive committee, and then Shin as our executive director and myself as associate director support board and leadership, and also manage the working groups and working group chairs. So yeah, that's how we operate. And core to OCFSN is membership. And membership has some specific who can be members is written specifically out clearly in the bylaws, and responsibilities of members is written out. So for membership, OCFSN, grassroots and nonprofit organizations that focus on farm and food work are eligible for membership. Regional and statewide organizations working on farm and food issues, government entities involved in food systems planning and development, national organizations with farm and food programming and staff in Oregon are also eligible for membership. We have a business affiliate program for folks who have for-profit entities that would like to be a member of OCFSN. They, however, according to our bylaws, do not have the right to vote. Business members don't have the right to vote for OCFSN. So that's something I think we've heard really clearly coming from folks at like the Food Hub Network, that some deeper dive into business membership beyond just affiliate members is something that folks would like to see. So we've heard that loud and clear, and that's something we we'll make sure to involve in the bylaws in the future amendments. So members, what are you expected to do as a member? Members are new members apply, and then the full membership votes to approve with a majority vote for new members. Members every year are asked to reconfirm or confirm their membership and designate their voting rep. In the bylaws, you're expected to participate in our working groups. You're expected to collaborate with folks in the working groups, participate in our events and convenings, provide data to support OCFSN's network-wide research and evaluation of the work that we're all doing, and provide input like you're doing today on our strategic planning. So that's the expectation of members. We have intentionally, as leadership and staff, really kept the door open to working groups, to folks who aren't official members. I think it has provided added benefit to the work that folks are doing for individuals, farmers, these food hubs, folks that aren't official members, to be involved in the work. And so that's something that we, I think, will continue to do. We currently have around 40 members who have renewed. Thank you everyone for doing that. Please, we've sent emails to folks who are in need of renewal. Please do so. And we also will be voting in some new members that have come in over the last 6 months or so. We'll be doing a vote throughout the membership for new members. We've got a lot of interest during the convening, so we'll get broaden our scope of membership, which is really great. That's really what is the heart and soul of OCFSN and how we are successful. And then we're located all over the state. This is just a quick look at where the yellow dots are members, blues are food hubs, and purple is staff and leadership. So we're really all over the state, representing food systems organizations and interests. Then membership votes in our leadership team, who then vote in the board. This is a quote directly out of our bylaws, that leadership team has the broad powers and decision-making authority subject to board oversight and duty to ensure the organization is serving charitable and educational purposes. Really, the leadership team and then the board are the entity that you all bring in to guide the work of OCFSN. We meet, the leadership team and the board have a different meeting schedule. And next slide, please. Leadership team meets they have 3-year terms and 2-term maximum. We meet monthly and staff puts together staff reports and provides details on all the work that's happening across the working groups and funding and all these budgeting. We just are in our budgeting process right now for 2026, wrapping that up. And the leadership team has these responsibilities that are outlined in the bylaws. And the board similarly has a 3-year term, 2-term maximum, and meets every other month currently, and has those specific responsibilities. Some of the things of note are that the leadership team elects the members of our board of directors, and then also elect the chair and vice chair. And then the board elects their own board officers, who then the board officers, president, secretary, and treasurer, and the 2 vice chairs serve as OCFSN's executive committee, which is the entity that's responsible for managing the organization with staff through between meetings, and is the entity that is the one that votes and approves our annual budget. So we have one of our co-chairs, Delaney, who we asked to share a little bit about her experience serving on OCFSN's leadership team. And if we did this at the beginning, but this is our leadership team. Folks can raise your hand again if you're here. And yeah, Delaney, want to share a little bit on what it's been like helping lead OCFSN during this growth and refinement period?
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. Hey, everybody. I also joined last year with Penny, so it's been a new experience for me. I'm down in Klamath Falls, so pretty rural out here, and that's one of the main reasons I wanted to join, was just to be able to get more involved in this work outside of, I work for the food hub down here, so I'm really plugged into that world, but not as much to the other working groups. So it's been really cool to see what else OCFSN is doing outside of the world I work in, and just connect with people that I might not be able to connect with on a daily basis. And it's been, yeah, great to see the vision for this organization, and I'm excited to see where the strategic planning goes. But yeah, here's our leadership team on the screen. If you're in the meeting, just raise your hand or wave on screen. We've got Rihanna from Cultivate Oregon. We've got Natalie from Friends of Family Farmers, Penny from Coast Fork Willamette Watershed Council. We've got Lindsay from the Oregon Food Bank, Allison from Rogue Valley Food System Network, Lauren from Oregon State University, Center for Small Farms, and Jason from Growing Gardens. So yeah, that's our team.
Thank you, Delaney. Yeah, so the leadership team essential for guiding the work of the network, ensuring that we are living up to our mission. And yeah, just a huge appreciation to those folks for the time they put in. It's not insignificant. There's our board is next. This is the entity that is responsible for ensuring that OCFSN is following the rules. Sarah with NEOEDD, Lisa, Carolina, Gabriel, and Trang. And so, yeah, raise your hands if you're here. And again, thank you. This is a big responsibility being on a board, especially for such a large network across the state. Sarah. Okay, sorry, you raise your hand. That's what I asked you to do. Sorry. That's funny. And then staff. Yeah, and so we do annual elections for leadership team and board. We've got some. Thank you for those folks who have applied at the convening, and later this year we're going to be doing those elections in March around the new members and everything. So yes, it's essential for that engagement for OCFSN to be responsive and successful in our food systems work across the state. So next comes our working groups. We're going to spend a whole bunch of time with different folks who work in the working group space in a bit, but that's the next level in the network of how folks engage. So members get involved in working groups, specific issue areas to push forward collective projects, issues, policy, all that stuff. So engage. Please be engaged as a member if you are, and vote on leadership team and new members. Connect your network to OCFSN. If you got folks who you think would be interested, connect them to Shin and I. We'll get them involved. Join our listservs. We have that on our website. There's all sorts of listservs for all the working groups, our general community listserv, our newsletter. Lots of ways to keep informed about the work that's happening. Working group listservs are used by members and share out all sorts of events and opportunities, funding opportunities, collaborations, all that stuff. It's a great place for folks to stay connected, attend our convenings, and then engage in our strategic planning, which Terasoma is working on right now. And our timeline for that in the next slide is we've been going through like the discovery phase. We're moving into the strategic planning phase where we're putting together the mission and vision and values. First, we have a final draft of our taking stock brief that many of you have reviewed. We're going to be drafting the plan and then get that finalized and approved by June with a lot of iterative review from you all to refine it. And that's really exciting. It's going to be a much more detailed and informative plan for us as staff and leadership to guide the work of OCFSN moving forward. We're really looking forward to having that as a developing organization. Okay, I'm going as quick as I can to make sure we give the working group folks time. Lastly, we've heard questions. How is OCFSN funded? So I put these together quickly yesterday. OCFSN is unique in an organization that most of us, it's a braided funding. It's a collaborative funding through many different pathways through the working groups and collaborative projects to keep OCFSN moving forward. I have a table here for 2023 because we had such a large amount of income coming in from the state grants for disaster resilience and food hubs that if it was in a table or in the pie chart format, it just was all one color and a little sliver in the other. So, it was really 2023. We really started refining our systems. We got that funding. It really kick-started OCFSN. And you can see some of these business contributions, foundation grants are a little lower in 2023 that we've been developing through working group projects and connections. And we've been income-wise around $300,000 from the last couple of years, 2024 and 2025. And as we've been working through these grant programs that have been part of that. So I didn't include that as in those two pie charts. But yeah, foundations like Roundhouse Foundation has been very supportive of OCFSN. Crafts Center for Resilient Agriculture and Food Systems at OSU has been very supportive of OCFSN. The VeggieRx working group has been getting funding through coordinated care organizations to do their HRSN learning collaborative. Food Hub has been getting funding from multiple sources, Regional Food Business Center. It's a lot of these different components of the food system in Oregon and what people are working on and excited about in the working groups that make the entity itself, OCFSN, funded and functioning to support and serve you all. That's what I got. Thanks for keeping with me on that. And then Shin's going to share a little bit about what we do to amplify and connect your work. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Andrew. Also, please stay hydrated.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Shin and I are both dealing with losing our voices. So thank you.
So OCFN's role as a network space really means that, we've focused on holding space for different groups from all different parts of the state to gather, to share information, and to really seek out different ways to weave together our work. So, we spend a lot of time, Andrew and I, staying up to date with different state agencies like ODA, NRCS, and Oregon Health Authority, and others who are at the intersection of local food systems and the importance of health and resilience to our collective communities. And since everything's so connected and everyone's impacted by, and all of our work impacts the broader system, when it makes sense, we also act as the main applicant or partner on funding opportunities. For example, like Andrew mentioned, the health-related service needs, nutrition benefits learning collaborative, and you'll also hear about some other specific examples during the working group presentations. And just to share a few key projects from this past year, when you see that there's so much state funding, the majority of that really goes back out directly to farmers and ranchers, as well as food hubs in investing in disaster resilience projects across the state, as well as worker safety and infrastructure grants. We also prioritize bringing everybody back together again for the first time since 2019 and hosted the full network convening and also our 10-year anniversary as a formalized network this past November. And, since our structure and has changed so much over, even just the past 5 years, that's also one of the reasons why we now are taking a look again at updating our strategic plan, which all of you have been a part of, and then continuing with the different working group projects as they arise, because we do try to be really responsive to what each of the working groups are needing and wanting to prioritize. And so before we get, I don't think we really have time for the break, so we might just keep rolling. But
Yeah, please take care of yourself. You need to step away real quick. It's totally understandable. Yep.
And we're gonna roll into the working group updates. So we're gonna spend a few minutes with each of the active working groups because this is also the space where most folks get to dive a little bit deeper on what their organizations are focused around. And I'm going to pass it over to Eliza.
Hey, thanks, guys. Yeah, so we are the Oregon Farm to Institution Collaborative and the newest work group of OCFSN as of the end of 2025. And OFIC formed in 2023 from a regional food systems partnership grant. We were originally housed at Healthcare Without Harm, and now we are within OCFSN. So it's kind of like a network of networks. And the goal is to support ranchers, farmers, food businesses on connecting to institutions by building up both the supply and the demand. And so we also did kind of a vision, mission, purpose long journey over the last year to kind of come to the vision of having Oregon grown and raised processed foods from local farms, fisheries, and states served in institutions across the state. So that's kind of our focus, is accessing institutional markets and supporting all of the supply side, so all of those farmers, ranchers, food businesses, and really making those connections within the state. And we've brought in a lot of folks and ideas from other states to help us build out this network in Oregon, which has been super exciting. Lots of words. I know this is the faux pas, but yeah, we had 3 working groups. Tomorrow we are going to be having our first quarterly meeting of OFIC at 11 a.m. if anyone wants to join, and we'll kind of talk about the new formation of these working groups. But right now we have an amazing value chain consultant who's been supporting with brokering food sales, food hub sales, and we've totaled over 100K in local food sales to institutions, really showing that this is desired. Institutions want to buy from our local food system, and we just have to figure out a lot of those connecting points. We've done a lot of branding and marketing. I need to get that out there more, but I have a lot of things that farmers and food hubs can share if they are selling to institutions. That's kind of along with the OFIC brand. And right now we're focusing on searching for relevant funding and shared project opportunities to bring more farm to institution to Oregon, as well as, since this is new to OCFSN, but a lot of OCFSN members have been participating in OFIC since its inception and been on the original program team, figuring out how we fit in with all the different work groups. So meeting with all the rest of the work groups that you'll hear from today and figuring out how food is medicine and food hub and all of that fits into farm to institution. So this is our focus. I really love the emails I get from everybody in this network. Like, hey, there's this opportunity. Have you seen it? Like, hey, do you want to collaborate on this? It's been so awesome to share all those resources. So if you ever think of something that relates to institution, please feel free to send me an email. I can drop my email in the chat. It's a little long. But yeah, kind of mentioned we're going to focus on having monthly work group meetings, and then we'll have quarterly OFIC meetings still to bring in experts and people to provide more engagement and education around farm to institution. And then we're always looking to support a lot of producer and food hub focused training. So yeah, that's a lot. We'll have a meeting tomorrow if anyone wants to come. I sent to the community OCFSN, and we also have our own listserv. So yep, I'll drop my email, but I'll pass it on now.
Thanks so much, Eliza. So I am going to step in for the unmatched Sydney DeLuna, who stewards the Oregon Food Hub Network, or what used to be called the Food Hub Club when it started informally in 2018. So the Food Hub Network is a peer-learning community of a lot of local food hub projects around the state, primarily in rural areas. And these include hubs in various different formats, nonprofits, small and small LLCs, and also all of the farmers, ranchers, and fishermen and rural economic development agencies that they collaborate with. And so taking a look at what this group did in 2025, we continued to worker safety site visits to 8 different hubs across the state and invested in things like fractional CFO support into 4 different hubs through annual budget plans and developing a new budget template for online marketplaces, a entire library of standard operating procedures for hubs, and was created, as well as additional public, which is really important to us. We want to be able to open source most of the things that we create so that there is something durable that folks can reference back to year over year. And some of those included things like how to build a walk-in, packing processes, and SNAP in food hubs. And also, taking into account the importance of people, because people make food hubs and all of our organizations run. So how do we manage and develop staff? We also developed a small maker processing toolkit, as well as a couple different co-packing related toolkits in partnership with the Northwest Rocky Mountain Regional Food Business Center. We also hosted 6 leadership training workshops on how to become an employer of choice, because again, a lot of these food hubs are in fairly rural areas. And also, it's really important to retain our teams and treat them well. And um, the Hub Network also still convenes its regular monthly meetings and was also a big part of the November Convening in terms of gathering information and evaluating what continuing an Oregon hub-to-hub trade network across different regions looks like. And part of the different resilience grants that we were able to get from the legislature over a period of 2 years in 2024 and 2025, we were able to grant out $1 million of pass-through funds from the state. So 38 food hubs across the state received awards that were across 21 different counties. And you can see there was a massive need. We had a $2.6 million request and only $1 million available to grant out. These funded all different types of projects for both supporting worker safety as well as building out infrastructure. Here's some really fun photos. You can see from Lane County Bounty and Gorge Farmer Collective and Josephine County Farm Collective. And in 2026, so this year, Sydney's planning on hosting the regular meetings, and the topics that we're really going to hone in on this year include navigating the regulatory environments, improving operational skill, and really making sure that there's financial viability for aggregators and distributors, especially as, we all know funding has dried up in a lot of ways over the past year, and making sure that we are focusing on shared kitchens and processors. We'll also continue worker safety program site visits and the follow-up trainings to really make sure that all of the infrastructure that we were able to push out in 2024 and 2025, that all of those projects, folks have the tools that they need in terms of like TA and site visits to make sure that they're fully utilizing those pieces of equipment. And then we will also be participating in a produce safety collaboration with UC Davis, as well as some product development workshops in collaboration with the Food Innovation Center based out of Portland. And a couple more photos because we love to see, what we were able to help put out and, into the ecosystem. And in 2024, good groceries. I know Christy's on the call right now, but you can see the before and after of, before she's out in Wallowa County, and you see a couple like pretty normal, like you might see in your own basement kind of refrigerators, but through the infrastructure grant, she was able to buy a used Ford Transit delivery van that already had refrigeration as well as a walk-in cooler and shelving for inventory for her one-woman show. Um, and then one more photo from the 2025 round. So round two of these grants, we were able to get Outgrowing Hunger was able, out in Rockwood, was able to purchase a used refrigerated truck and pallet jacks. Port Orford on the coast was able to purchase a new label maker, which is really key in identifying seafood by species, and also the captain and the vessel that caught it. And then you also see some steel dollies for materials handling at their pack-out facilities for Valley Flora. And I will pass it over to Claire before I lose my voice, to talk about the Veggie working group.
Thanks, Shin. For those who don't know me, my name is Claire Londigan, and I led the steering committee for the Veggie RX working group for the last year and a half. And so this group brings together people and organizations that are supporting Veggie RX style programs. And this last year, we met quarterly to provide that peer learning space. It's really open to nonprofits, direct folks who are growing food, anyone doing direct to consumer that is interested in connecting to healthcare systems, coordinated care organizations, which in Oregon are the entities that manage Medicaid, and other healthcare and clinical healthcare entities. And then just really quickly, what is a Veggie RX? Underneath our umbrella for this working group, at least, it's either a CSA share or veggie box, or otherwise like a market style food pickup, as well as a card or voucher to shop at a farmer's markets or a participating grocery retailer. And so this last year, we completed an abridged biannual Veggie RX census, a bit shorter this year than in years past, but we really wanted to capture the state of Veggie RX in Oregon, and I'll include one slide about that in a minute, before any federal changes impact the Veggie RX programs and systems in the state, as well as before the health-related social needs, fruit and vegetable benefit, and pantry stocking benefit roll out this year in 2026. So we also met quarterly, and we learned from a number of organizations to support Veggie RX programs in modifying their operations, improving their systems. Organizations like Project Dash, which is a DoorDash service that delivers food to Veggie RX and other food as medicine program participants in Oregon. So really doing a lot of information sharing. Sharing about card options to use for digital vouchers for produce prescription programs, et cetera. And so in 2026, right now, there are no working group meetings scheduled, but we're planning a virtual mixer to really do some brokering and make connections between clinical care providers, health systems, and Veggie RX program operators. So stay tuned for an announcement at some point later this year, ideally in the next couple months, I hope. And really quickly, this is just from our census that we completed this year. These are the counties served by Veggie RX programs in Oregon. We included 2 counties in Washington because the Gorge Farmer Collective Veggie RX operates and sources produce from those counties, as well as delivers Veggie RX services to folks in those Washington counties. And just a note that the pins on this map don't represent prescription redemption sites, just programs that operate within that county. Okay, and so within the Veggie RX working group, we have a closed group that's the Health-Related Social Needs Learning Collaborative. And so in the context of Oregon, health-related social needs is the health-related social needs benefit is a new way for eligible Medicaid members to have their nutrition and housing needs addressed by their health plan. And so it is a kind of novel way for a health plan for Medicaid to pay food-related organizations, and some organizations that are doing direct-to-consumer VeggieRx programs for their services. That's at least the intent behind the program. And so the purpose of this group, the last year was the first year that we facilitated the Learning Collaborative. The group aims to support those community organizations that are interested in becoming nutrition service providers under this program or are already enrolled as providers to really adopt and incorporate their systems into these new Medicaid delivery service systems. You can go on to the next slide. And I might skip this detail, but I'll just add that those specific services that can be reimbursed for a specific subset of Medicaid members include nutrition education, medically tailored meals, the fruit and vegetable benefit, which in the original policy language was a prescription produce program, but it's been changed, still the same intent, as well as pantry stocking. Next slide. So last year, this group met monthly. They wrote, or the coordinator at the time, as well as the group collectively advocated for policy change and guidance through some letters delivered to Oregon Health Authority, as well as conducted strategic planning. And this year, for 2026, we're going to meet monthly again. Oh, looks like my formatting was off, apologies. We're going to develop some really tangible resources that hopefully will be useful for folks beyond this specific learning collaborative, including a calculator to try and assess how to blend funds and braid funds to figure out if health-related social needs or other program design is right for your organization, and also make meaningful connections with subject matter experts, coordinated care organization staff, and others in the group.
Thank you so much, Claire. I'll pass it over to Lauren.
Hey, everybody. I am so happy to see so many people sticking with this call to get the full-on blast of all this amazing stuff that OCFSN does. It's so great. And basically, Oregon's public policy framework is something that a lot of us have been figuring out how to get involved with, how to get embedded in, because we understand that public policy really frames a lot of the choices that we make and a lot of the opportunities we have related to getting to our vision of an equitable, sustainable, resilient food system, right? And so some places where we as a statewide network have had a lot of traction are really building relationships with certain state agencies, and also our collective information sharing and spreading the word about legislation that comes up during the state legislative sessions. If you track state level policy at all, you know that next month is this year's short session. The sessions are odd in one year, they are long in one year and short in the other. And we do a project called Community Food Systems at the Legislature, where we share information about bills. And I just did the math recently, and we have tracked 161 bills since we started doing this in 2019. That is a lot of bills. Why don't we go to the next slide? So this is really foundational. OCFSN was not started as a food policy council. There are many food policy councils around the country. We know and admire many of them. We were not started as a food policy council. Not all founding members of OCFSN were interested in, ready for, willing to actually engage in policy advocacy. There were lots of reasons for that. But from the very beginning, it was recognized that advocating for, first you identify, then you advocate for state, regional, and local policy solutions is really part of our goal because it's part of our theory of change. So I always like to put this in here to remind us where we came from and that it's always been part of how this network works. Go ahead. One thing that comes up a lot related to community food systems at the legislature is what we do is we gather up all the different bills that all of our member organizations and our close partners and allies are watching. These could be bills that they want to pass, and they could be bills that they want to stop. But we collect all of them so that we can all have information about what's going on. This is a picture from 2019 when we had a really big public policy focus. We met at our convening was near Salem. And we printed out these 8.5 by 11s about every single bill and covered one of the walls. So we really try to get folks to see beyond their particular issue area across all of the work we do in food systems and a lot of related issues. You know, if we are going to work, if we have justice as one of our priorities as a network, we need to think beyond food and farming to policies that are related to justice. And actually, if you think deeper about it, do have a connection. So instead of going to just a few policies that we focus on in a focused advocacy kind of way and having a lobbyist, we keep all of them on the table so that no individual organization's policies are left behind. Go ahead. And then this year, as I said, we're focused on the short session of the legislature. This is the 7th time that we've done bills to watch. We are having another meeting tomorrow at 10 a.m. And we are also spending time with state agencies, getting a deeper dive into how they do their work, what are our opportunities to work with them. There are a couple of governor-started initiatives right now that are related to food systems that we've been tracking and engaged with. And then the 2027 long session of the legislature is going to be big, full, and complicated. And so we always need to get going as soon as the dust settles on the short session so that we are ready to, So that's a summary of what we do. We would love to have you join this group, and there's the info.
Great. Thank you, Lauren. Awesome. And folks can go to our website, find those details, join those listservs, and I'll send out a reminder for that meeting tomorrow. I'm going to bring us home here, last working group, and then we're going to hear back from the Terrasoma folks. They're going to share what they've put together. So there's a lot of folks in our network who provide resources, training, connections to the producers across the state. And the Farming for the Future working group is where those folks come together to collaborate, to improve their collective effectiveness and impact for a range of challenges faced by Oregon's farmers and ranchers. They do this through information sharing, collaborative projects, relationship building, and all these different things. So over the years, the working group has engaged in multiple projects. We have a awesome beginning farmer and rancher story map resource. We've done this disaster resilience grant program, and then multiple collaborative projects have come out of the working group or been supported by or in part connected to the working group, like FOF's Capital Access for Local Farmers, the Transitioning Oregon Farmland BFRDP with folks from Oregon Farm Corps, Oregon Ag Trust, and Friends of Family Farmers. All sorts of great projects that folks have been working on. In 2026, going to do a deeper dive into some of the land access work, that bringing in the Oregon Farm to Institution Collaborative and their land access work. Coming out of the 3-year BFRDP, there's a lot of opportunity right now to start reimagining and thinking statewide around land access work. So we'll be doing that. Continuing our farm viability work. We have a working group that meets every other month around farmer training for business acumen and support for farm viability. And then figuring out what's next for disaster resilience for farm and ranchers. We did not get the renewal for the disaster resilience grant program. But there are, like Lauren mentioned, these governor's initiatives. There's a lot of talk about disaster resilience at the state level, and we're going to figure out how farmers and ranchers and those who support them are playing an important role in our states and our communities' resilience to disaster. Just a couple of quick slides. This is our story map. You can find it on our website. Great resource to share with folks. Both regional and local organizations are represented in there. Next slide, for the highlight from the Disaster Resilience Grant Program. Over 2 years, we awarded $2.45 million to 181 different farms and ranches across the state. We received a huge amount of interest, 432 applications requesting over $7.5 million for those projects. So the need is there. When you get these slides, you can see our final report slides on that. And then there's just a picture of where those farms and ranches are located across the state who got funding through OCFSN and the state investment. And with a minute to spare, we'll pass it over. That's Farming for the Future. We want you guys to get involved in that, connect with us. I'll help you get connected to that working group if you're interested. And with that, let's pass it over back to the Soma folks who have been hard at work collating, figuring out our collective mission, vision, and values.
Super. Thanks so much. Claudia, I'll go ahead and share the screen so you can kick things off.
All right, thank you, Maggie. All right, so part two of our exercises today, as mentioned, we were able to take all your input and start to draft different mission, vision, and value statements. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to share those with you, and we're going to ask for more of your feedback and input. So we'll be reviewing two different versions of the mission statement based on what you told us in terms of your preference for short and sweet. We'll also be, and all of this includes content that we received input during the convening as well. We'll also be reviewing two different versions of the mission statement as well as the value statement. And for each, we're going to be using Menti again for you to let us know out of the two versions, which one do you prefer? And then we'll go through each version for you to tell us what do you think works well specifically of that version and what would you change. And so this is all just an effort for us to get as much input from you all as possible. And then towards the end of our session today, I'll talk a little bit about next steps and how that information will be utilized.
Great. Thanks, Claudia. And before we kick this off, I'll walk you through the Menti process. But just a reminder that the statements we're going to share, I'd like you to consider as a drafty V1 draft, right? So this is sort of seeing what lands with some of the language that you provided, a little bit about style. We're going to ask you for your preference, which one you might prefer for the mission statement, which one you might prefer for the vision statement. We're going to ask you also what you think works well for each statement, as Claudia said, as well as what suggested changes. So think about this as reacting to very quickly generated mission and vision statement options that integrate the feedback that you've provided today and in November. And then we'll take all of this feedback today and then really start to massage them in a much slower and more intentional way. So this is kind of a rapid fire prototyping. So keep that in mind. And if you go, I don't like this one at all, then that's what we want to hear. But I want to reassure all of you that what we're about to share with you, you are not stuck with. We're just getting started in this process. And this is a way for us to cast a wide net for feedback. When we get to the discussion about vision statement, I also have an additional feedback question I'll ask you about to respond to in the chat in response to a query from one of you. So just want to reassure you that there will be time for us to do that. So give me just a second to queue up this work. And I want to thank all of you for your rapid fire input. It was super helpful. So let's get to work here. Menti's going to work the same way as it did when we were working with it earlier in our session today. So we've got two mission statements. So please, before you start reacting, let me walk you through each of them. We have two options. Option A really emphasizes what OCFSN does in terms of collaboration, capacity building, and inclusion. So the option A mission statement is supporting healthy, connected food and farm communities across Oregon through collaboration, shared learning, inclusion, and collective capacity. So you can see here it really foregrounds the network. Now let's take a look at option B, which really foregrounds more the food system and the actors in the food system. So option B kind of uses this concept of nourishment and resilience, nourishing people and farms by building inclusive, resilient food systems across Oregon through collaboration and advocacy. So they're different. So at first blush, and you're not stuck with either of these, we're interested, just as a pulse check, which draft mission statement you prefer. So remember to log into Menti. It shows you what to do at the top of this slide, menti.com, and then type in that code if you need to do that, and then you can select which one you're leaning toward. This is just a straw poll, really. I also appreciate the active use of thumbs up. Thanks, folks. That's nice to see. Anyone else want to weigh in here? We want to make sure everybody has the chance to express their preference. Great. Thanks. So if you're still reading and ruminating on this and haven't cast your vote yet, no problem. Take your time. Now we're going to move on to some different feedback on the mission statement. So this is just about option A. We're going to ask you the same questions for option B. So first, let's just hang out and spend some time getting your reactions to option A. I am going to ask you what edits you have on the next slide. So what I really want to hear from you on this one is what you think works well about this mission statement A. Even if you said you like mission statement B, we really want to hear what you like about mission statement A. It might be a word, it might be a phrase, it might be, I like that you started with a verb instead of a subject. Let me know what you think works well about mission statement A, regardless of which one you prefer. Thanks, Carly. And we'll be asking you the question that for the exact kind of feedback you just made, and Christy and Allison, that's true as well. So hold tight. We've got a process here we're working through. Okay, I'm going to scroll so folks can see what's here. And of course, we're going to keep your chat comments and we will integrate those into the work ahead. And you can see here, not surprisingly, your colleagues have really good, robust comments and about what you like. Good. Anyone else? Thank you. Good. Okay. Now we're going to ask you to get your red pen out, your metaphoric red pen. So mission statement A, again, over here on the left. If you had the task of improving or strengthening mission statement A, what specific suggestions would you recommend? Is there a different word? Is there a different structure? Is there something missing that for sure should be added? So be as concrete and specific as you can so that Claudia and I are able to follow your guidance and continue to evolve the drafting of the mission statement. So how could you improve this? What edits, what suggestions, what modifications? Great. Great. And Christy, putting in those comments in the Menti would be great. They're all such constructive and helpful comments. I want to make sure we're capturing it all together in one place. Great.
No problem, Christy. I'll drop that in mine.
And if Menti's not working for you, no problem, use the chat and we'll coordinate with Shin and Andrew to make sure that we're able to incorporate all of your comments. We won't leave anybody out. One thing that's clear here as I review it is healthy is an adjective that you'd like to reconsider its usage for the mission statement. So that's really, really helpful. There's definitely unanimity here, as well as some individual suggestions that are really very helpful. Good. So, we've asked you to put in your own feedback, but as we're waiting for everyone to respond, I encourage you to also be reviewing what your partners today are also saying. Gives you an idea of kind of the range of perspectives, what folks think needs to be done to further refine the mission statement. Great. Okay, anyone else? Super. And Christy, thank you so much. I hear you on typing in your phone, not easy. So thanks so much for adding that information to the chat. That's great. Okay. Good. We're going to use the same process now for option B. Thanks, everybody. And if you're still writing in some additional feedback on mission statement A, which I see that we're getting, please feel free to do so before you move on. Great. Thank you. Okay. Now, mission statement B, we're going to ask you the same set of questions. So what we want to know first is what works well. What are the things you like about mission statement B? What are the strengths? What's worth keeping? So tell us what works well about mission statement B, which is included here on the left. And you can see here, mission statement B more emphasizes the food system rather than the network, whereas mission statement A emphasized the network. So tell us what works well. Good. Good. Thanks, Christy. And I think you can see as you're reviewing your colleagues' feedback here, there is a lot of unanimity. Folks are of the same mind around some of the key concepts and terms that are introduced in this mission statement. So that's really helpful to know because it tells us what matters to many of you, right? Yeah, we're hearing a lot about clear and concise. And one of the things you said about the mission statement is you would like short and sweet. So it's good to hear that this resonates with that preference. Good. Okay. All right. We're going to move on to the next slide, but if you're still saying good things about mission statement B, have at it before we move on. Okay, now this is about what we can improve. So same mission statement, same focus on the food system. What specific suggestions can you make that would improve mission statement B? Are there other word choices? Is there something missing? Do you have structural recommendations? So how could we strengthen mission statement B and be as specific and concrete as you can? So think about this as wordsmithing, the wordsmithing level. Good. Good. So we've got everything from excellent, clear guidance to even someone who's taken the time to suggest an alternative version of it, which is just great. This is exactly the kind of feedback we find super helpful. Great. And in the same way that folks were pretty ambivalent about the use of healthy in version A, seems like you're uh, equally committed to trying a different verb other than nourishing. So that's very helpful feedback on both fronts. Thanks for that. Good. Okay. Please continue to add other specific suggestions to mission statement B. And now we're going to move on to the next slide. So we're moving to vision statement now. And what I'd like to remind you is that vision statements are intended to describe the ideal future OCFSN is trying to foster through what it does. So we've got two different vision statements here. The first one is really your vision for Oregon's future food system. The second one is really your vision for the network. In both cases, you'll notice that these are fairly long. I will get to a chat-based discussion about that in a few minutes. We're going to work our way through getting feedback through these structured slides, and then we'll pivot to discuss the length of the vision statement. So take a peek at these two and let us know which one you prefer. One is the food system vision, two is the network vision. Thanks, folks. I think you can see a clear front runner here. And of course, the front runner can be as much about the language that's used or the emphasis. So we'll get more into that in the next couple of slides, but very helpful. If you haven't voted yet for which vision statement you prefer, please do so now. Thanks, everyone. Okay, now let's start with vision statement number one. This is the one that really focuses on the food system. Tell me what works well about this vision statement. We want to know the positives that you like. What works well? Great. Wonderful. Thanks, Christy. Good. Anything else, folks? Great. Okay. If you have more to say, by all means, go ahead and give your feedback. We'll move on to the specific suggestions you have to improve Vision Statement B, which emphasizes the food system. So now what we're asking you for is edits, modifications, deletions, additions. So be as specific and concrete as you can. What would make this vision statement better? What would you like to recommend to strengthen it? Thanks, Lauren. Great, thank you. Great. And remember, vision statements are for the ideal future you're trying to create. It's about what you want, not what you do. Excellent. Thanks, folks. Such good feedback. Great. Awesome. So as you're winding up your specific suggestions, I'm going to ask you to use the chat for this next question. When we did the initial votes for if you preferred short and sweet or long and comprehensive for mission statement, the vast majority of the group voted for short and sweet for the mission statement. When it came to the vision statement, a preponderance of you by a measure said you wanted something longer and more comprehensive. One of the things you'll see here is not only are these vision statements longer and more comprehensive, but some of you have had comments like, this is pretty wordy and long. So what I'd like you to do in the chat, if you said you'd like a longer, more comprehensive vision statement, if you could put your rationale for why you thought that would be helpful, and that will be helpful to Claudia and I. So, if you can put a response in the chat about what was it that led you to decide that you preferred a longer and more comprehensive vision statement. So if you could just put that feedback in the chat, we would appreciate it. That'll be helpful for us as we craft the next round or version of the vision statement. You can join Christy in the chat. So if you could put that response in the chat, please, before we move on to the values. Thank you. Okay, thanks, Allison. Thank you, Penny. And thanks to those of you who are, clicking a thumbs up, because that lets us know you're supportive, or that answer also speaks to what you see. Good. And for those of you who had questions about, okay, why longer and more comprehensive, take a peek at what your colleagues said about why they felt a longer vision statement might be helpful. Great. Thanks, Claire. Good. Super. Okay, if you haven't entered your response to that question yet, but you're planning to, go ahead and do that. And as you do, I'm going to move on to the values, the a couple more questions about the vision statement. So we're going to pick this up a little bit because I know we have an end time coming up soon. For the network-oriented vision statement, what works well about it? This is option B. So please let us know what works well about the network-oriented vision statement. So we're back to Menti. Great. Let's get a little more feedback on vision statement. Once we're done with these two slides, then you get to take a peek at the values. Home stretch, folks. Thank you. Good. Good. Very constructive. Thanks for this productive feedback. Keep going. And your specific comments are just so helpful for Claudia and me as we work to finalize a more coherent, the second version for your review and discussion in coming weeks. All right. Thanks everybody for all this. Let's move on now to what specific suggestions would you make to improve option B vision statement, which is focused on the network. So concrete specific suggestions that would strengthen this draft vision statement. Thank you. Thank you, Jeffrey, for your additional feedback on the length question in the chat. Super helpful. Good. Okay. So the final slide, we were not sure if we could get through everything today, but I want to give you an opportunity to comment on the draft values statement. So for those of you still working on the vision statement, please put in your comments. And here is the set of draft values. And you'll see, you might recall we asked you questions about values about the network, values about engaging with stakeholders, and values about the food system. And so these value statements cover all of those. So here what we'd like to ask you to do is provide some feedback, specific feedback on what you think could strengthen this first draft value statement for OCFSN. So as you're putting in your specific comments, what we'll also do is create a Google form after today that Shin and Andrew can send out to all of you. So if you'd like to provide further feedback on the vision statements, the mission statement, and the value statement, you'll be able to do that. This isn't your only time, and we want to make sure that you have pathways to provide something concrete. I've also added my email address to the chat. So if you'd like to reach out to me directly with additional feedback or ideas, by all means do so. So we'll provide a couple of different ways directly to me or through a Google form if there's more you've got to say. Okay, so Claudia, I'm going to leave this slide up so folks can continue to provide feedback and turn it over to you to kind of close the segment out. One thing I want you to understand is that this is a distinct design for mission, vision, and value statements from what many of you have probably already experienced. What we do is a discovery phase, which is getting all the language from you and kind of workshopping some potential approaches and content to get your feedback. We will refine what you sent us today, and then over the course of the next 8 weeks, as we develop the strategic plan draft, there'll be places for further discussion and refinement of the mission, vision, and value statements. So know that this is the discovery phase. The discussion and review phase will happen subsequent to our session today. So Claudia, I'll turn it over to you to close things out, and then you can hand it back to Shin and Andrew. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Maggie, and thank you to everybody who's thoughtfully and intentionally given your input. As Maggie mentioned, this is really wrapping up the discovery phase where our intent is to get as much information from as many voices as possible to then move into the actual planning and discussion part. So in the chat, I've dropped just in writing what you can expect is going to happen next. Maggie already talked about some of the specific opportunities through the Google form. She's offered her email as well. And so just expect that we will continue to circle back with you to make sure that you have additional opportunities to give us your feedback. What will happen is that in subsequent meetings or engagements, you'll continue to see the drafts in their iteration, moving into having it being finalized along with the strategic plan later in the year. So thank you, everybody. Shin and Andrew, I'll hand it over back to you.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Aggie, Claudia. It's so awesome. Really appreciate you really fitting a lot of stuff into this convening and looking forward to seeing this process move forward. So stay tuned, folks. Lots more engagement opportunities as we develop the strategic plan moving forward. Get connected to your working group, the whatever issues you're working on, and reach out to Shin and I if you have any questions, need assistance, want to get connected to somebody or something, and we're happy to be that support. So we'll see you all at the next one. Have a great afternoon.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Great job, everybody. Good